Okay, well, I guess.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
look
think
clear. I look clear on both of them.
Yeah.
I don't think I have anything because of COVID, so I'm not doing anything. Yeah, they're open. So I'm good too. Anybody else not available on either of those dates? Yeah, this sounds familiar. We're going through this COVID thing again, so nobody's going anywhere. All right, so we'll have those meetings on those dates. Rebecca, you have a trustee report?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. Let's see. I've been working with Bob Larrabee, who's our Mill Creek steward, to look at the issues and potential great things surrounding our historic Mill Creek there. We had a meeting with folks from the Long Island Sound Study, New York Sea Grant, and Seatuck Environmental Association. We've been researching the tide gate there, which seems to be sort of out of date and or malfunctioning. So we're looking into getting that working better, both for the wildlife, because we've found eels in the creek, which is interesting, and also, of course, for flood purposes, to make sure that we are doing our best utilizing the creek to minimize flooding in Port Jefferson. So that, invasive species removals, things like that, we're looking to see which steps we want to take first and how to go about getting some funding for that from different grant sources. We, as the Board of Trustees, have been having a lot of conversation, a lot of issues from the public about speeding, traffic, requests for stop signs, things like this. So I guess I would encourage on behalf of the Board of Trustees to always keep that in mind as projects are being looked at, so that there's no addition, if there's foreseeable traffic, issues as far as speeding or, pedestrian safety goes. That's something that's been sort of at the front burner lately for us. Otherwise, the 6-acre park committee will meet later this month to continue work on looking at those 6 acres along Highland Boulevard and creating a recommendation therein. And that is my report for this evening.
Okay, thanks, Rebecca. Anyone have any questions or comments for Rebecca? Okay, let's get into the agenda. And now the library is, we're going to discuss the library in advance of the public hearing?
Yes, I thought this would be a good opportunity. And there are members of the library and their team here who, if you want me to bring them in, and we can take a look at the 2 different proposals. Just let me. So I'm promoting John Longo to panelist and Jacqueline Ruggiero. Along with Christian Newbert and Thomas Donnellan. Okay. So I think I see them all entering now.
Yep, correct.
Hello.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Lisa, if you want to introduce the application and just
Yes, I will bring up the library's application and share it on my screen. We'll start with there are 2 different proposals for the library for the 2 lots neighboring it on either side that were purchased a while ago. So the first one we'll talk about is at 205 East Main Street. So let me know how your view of that is. Can you see the 205 East Main Street?
Yep.
Okay. So the 205 East Main Street is a historic residence in the RB3 residential district, right across from our C1 downtown commercial. It has a CEU for a retail store on the first floor and the basement, and a residence then on the second and third floors of the building. The library is proposing to relocate their teen center from across the street to this side of the street, kind of unifying their uses on the same side of the street, and using that first floor and second floor for the teen center. To do that, they will need to put in a handicap accessible ramps. You can see here that the ramp is highlighted in yellow and would lead to the rear door of the building. Benefit is there's minimal impact on the this what is a very cute house. It's a contributor to our historic district in the village, and there'll be very minimal impact to the exterior of that structure. I'd put in my staff report, I made some errors, an error with discussing the parking requirements for the site, because actually this is not, since it's not in the C1, the retail use that was there previously was actually a non-conforming use. And there is no current parking calculation for retail use for the RB3 because it's not a permitted use. So we'd have to assume that the previous calculation of 1 per 100 would have applied to this location. And the library's use is 1 per 200 calculation. So it actually is both becoming more conforming and de-intensifying, based on that old parking calculations. The one question I had was about the use of the cellar space, and if there was an intent to use that for library activities, or if that was going to become just an unfinished storage space, perhaps for long-term storage or utility space.
You were correct with the second part, that it would be used for storage and utilities only.
Okay.
Okay, any board members have any questions for the applicant's representative?
I'm on mute and I'm trying to talk. Okay.
So I guess you have a question.
I do. Just to be clear, the entrance will be in the back. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yep, the back northern side of the building.
Oh, okay. So, and it'll operate just like the teen center that's across the street. Nothing else planned for the teen center in terms of, I can't even think, but just the basic, what they've been doing so far, which is already incredible.
Exactly.
Just moving it so that it's at least next door to the library.
Yep, team will be able to use the first 2 floors of the Bales house, and it's just going to undergo light interior renovations to better suit, the activities that teens would be doing in there.
Okay. That's all I have.
Anybody else on the board?
Just, I think an easy one, just to clarify what Laura was asking. So everybody's going to enter through that northeast corner of the building, or is there another?
Not everybody. That's just provided as an ADA entrance.
Right.
Otherwise, patrons would just come across, the sidewalk there connecting the main library to the Bales House property and be able to use the current entrance.
Okay, thank you.
So very, very little, people wouldn't be using the new ramp and new entry too often.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And any other board questions? Okay, what is happening with, they're moving out, so they're physically moving out of the building across the street, and is that space rented at this time, or?
I can answer that for you. I'm Christian Newbert. I'm the vice president of the board. We
Okay.
rent that space on East Main Street, across the street. Yeah, that's a rented space.
Okay. Anybody else have questions? Okay, Lisa.
So just to clarify, the reason this is up, it will be on public hearing on February 3rd. And the reason it requires that is because the site is changing a use, and the use of library is a conditional use. So that's hence the need for the public hearing for both of these applications. Oh, I should also just mention, though we'll address this in February, that this change is a seeker type 2 action, because it is the modification of an existing building and to an approved use. And so therefore, we won't have to do any additional environmental review on it.
Okay. Anybody else, comments, questions? Okay, I guess we'll see you all on February 3rd.
Well, we should probably bring up the second library.
Why don't we bring up the second one?
Oh, and I just had a quick question. I'm sorry. It just, the second floor, are you going to make that ADA? How are people going to get there?
So we're actually, everything that will be on the second floor will also be provided on the first floor. So
Okay.
it basically is just a mirrored version of the first floor. It's just more space with all the same activities up there. So
Okay.
there were travel upstairs.
Okay.
Okay, Lisa, want to go on to the second part?
Yeah, so let me just, actually, unfortunately, I apologize. I have to pull up this. I
All right,
should have
let's
had
see.
it on my desktop, but I don't. So the second project is, if you all recall, on Thompson Street up the hill from the existing library. There's that additional lot that had the kind of dilapidated 2-family home on it. The library purchased that lot, and they got a building permit to demolish the home and removed it. So it's currently a vacant lot on Thompson Street. And the proposal that the library has brought before us is to put a outdoor quiet use outdoor garden space for things like meditation, reading, yoga, those types of activities that the library is proposing. And I will share my screen to show the, let me just find the plans here. They notably included a row of arborvitae, green giant arborvitae along the, let me just think, that's the northeast side of the property, which is the one closest to the neighboring residence. So that will provide some degree of screening there. I'm just having a little trouble finding my digital version of this. Here we go. Just here, I will share my screen now. Okay, so let me just see which is the best view. I think maybe this is. Can you see that full image?
Yeah.
All right, so this is the proposal. You see the existing library parking lot is next to it, and it sort of creates a winding path through the space with gardens and various spaces around it. Perhaps the library wants to speak a little more to the uses in the space.
Yeah, sure. I'll take the lead. This is John Longo from BBS Architects. So we've identified zones of use for this parcel. To your point, which is correct, we're calling this outdoor education and fitness, which is basically just supplementing the existing uses of the library, but bringing those activities outdoors. And some of the use zones would be an arts and crafts area. As you move through the property from north towards south, meaning from the street Thompson down towards the bottom of the page, the use zones would be the arts and crafts area. And then the middle area would be yoga and Tai Chi and some low impact style fitness. There would be a reading and story time area, a Mother Goose type arrangement where there'll be outdoor story time and things like that for the children. As you wind your way up the path that was identified to be meditation and quiet area, potentially prayers, things like that. And as you then transition further, as you get into the wooded area, that's our nature explore area, if you will, where there'll be a curriculum to support, what nature, doing experiments or looking at different types of elements up there. The reason for the path winding is on purpose. That is for handicapped accessibility without the use of stairs or ramps. So from the sidewalk at Thompson all the way to the back is code compliant, handicapped accessible walkway, which then links all of these 5 elements, if you will, as we work our way through. The top right there is where Lisa indicated that the evergreen screening would be. We recognize the proximity of the residents adjacent, and that's why those plants are placed there. And there would be a lot of additional landscaping as part of this proposal. It currently is a fully irrigated grass plot at this moment, and it will remain with irrigation and ornamental landscaping after we're finished with the construction.
Okay. Any questions from the board?
Ray, can I ask?
Yes, I see your hand.
I was just curious about, I don't know if there needs to be any drainage, probably not, because.
We do have drainage included, Laura, just to capture
Okay.
any runoff, because the site does slope some 5 to 6 feet from south towards north towards the street. So
Okay.
we're capturing all of that before it would get to the sidewalk at Thompson. So it's all on-site drainage in keeping with current stormwater requirements for the village.
Okay, great. Is that I'm trying to zoom in on my phone to see.
Well,
So it's
when I
right-
see you guys in person, I'll have a giant board, I promise.
Okay. All right, and then so basically, like it looks like a really small percentage is going to be impervious.
Less than 50%.
Yeah.
And of that, and of those surfaces, some of those chosen are what we consider a important place recycled rubber. That is still an impervious surface. Water will go through that, but I actually included that in our pervious calculation, if you will. There'll be a synthetic turf, a small area in there as well to mitigate maintenance and mowing. And again, the water percolation goes through there into a gravel base. So even the areas that do look impervious do have degrees of perviousness to them.
And then the other thing was, how are you going to monitor this space in terms of making sure it's patrons?
Yeah, so currently, I'm not speaking out of turn for the library, but currently the site is completely fenced and locked down. The utilization will mirror exactly library hours. And as far as, whatever days of the week and holidays and hours the library is open, this parcel will be open and it will be closed and secured otherwise. There are currently security cameras on the parking lot lights in the library parking lot, which will be able to see the occurrences on this piece of property too. Additionally, the lighting that's currently there today as it exists is enough illumination to provide a sufficient foot candle level for the cameras, so that there's no lighting considered as part of this project either, or cameras, because they currently exist on the edge of the parking lot for the library side.
Yeah. And hi, I'm Tom Donlan, the library director. Just to elaborate, we have 2 cameras on the lot. We put them up on our light poles right after we took the house down. And the constables in the 6th precinct all have access to all of our outside cameras, so they can monitor at all times. And they're also infrared. So even if we had a power outage, these cameras would be able to see if something's going on at the property, which is good. And I could access them from home as well as our security guards. They can see from their station in the library. They can bring on all the outside cameras if we felt like something was going on, and we could address as quickly as possible.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Other questions? Look, that looks like an attractive and well thought out plan.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that. And yes, there was quite a bit of thought into it. It's like I said, it's supplementary to the current offerings from the library, which are wonderful. And in this COVID era, which seemingly is never going away. Getting activities outside is nothing but beneficial for all. So, and it also reduces the load on the interior of the building. So we see this as a win-win all around.
Yeah, great. Okay, thank you. And we look forward to seeing you on February 3rd.
Great, thank you. Thank you all. We'll see you in a month.
Good night.
Thank you.
Okay, good night. Bye.
Okay. The next item on our agenda, Lisa, is actually postponed.
Yes, we'll discuss that on the 3rd, I expect.
Okay. So let's move on to Mather Hospital, and I assume there's a cast of thousands in the waiting room.
Yes, Jen, if you will tell me specifically who you'd like me to bring in and if there's any particular document you'd like me to bring up.
Well, I did send certainly Anthony Guardino, if he's there, Courtney Riley. I don't know who else might be there. Andrew Kelly, Dan Winkleman.
Dan Winkleman will be there, yeah.
Okay. I just basically told Courtney to please pass along the link to any of the team members she felt should be part of the discussion.
All right. So I have some of them joining right now. You said Andrew Kelly too, correct?
If he's there, I don't know. I'm sort of leaving it up to
Yep.
Anthony Guardino and Courtney to. But
Sure. Shall I start?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah, everybody's in, Anthony?
I think
Yes.
so. Yes.
Okay.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Anthony Guardino. I represent Northwell at Mather in connection with its request to have the planning board approve its pending site plan application. I have with me on the screen Courtney Riley and Dan Winkleman, both from VHB Engineering. Also, Wayne Shaddis, I believe, is on here, I believe.
Oh, I can promote him to panelist.
Yes, if you could, please. He's the Vice President of Administration for Mather, and will be able to answer any operational questions or other questions that the board may have. So just by way of update, since the last planning board work session meeting, we have continued to work with staff to refine the site plan to address a number of comments that were provided by the board and by staff. However, at this point, we're finding ourselves at a little bit of a crossroads because after satisfying a number of the comments that were made at a significant cost to the hospital, Mather is now being asked to make some other costly on-site and off-site improvements that we believe have very little nexus to the emergency department and surgical services addition that really is driving this site plan application, and which we think have only a marginal benefit at best. So, you know, the hospital, as you know, been around in the village for nearly 100 years. It operates, you know, as a community hospital, but it now is looking to make a significant financial investment in the hospital for improvements that it deems are necessary to provide its patients with state-of-the-art healthcare. Fortunately, Mather is now part of the Northwell network, which provides significant financial backing to make the improvements, but you know, it's just not an open checkbook. It can't do everything that's on a wish list. You know, in a perfect world, you know, we wish we could do everything, but there's only a limited amount of resources. And Mather is seeking to focus those financial resources to improve basically its healthcare services for the benefit of its patients, as well as to make certain on-site and off-site improvements that have a relationship to the addition that the ED surgical services addition that it's proposing. What we're finding now is that with each concession that Mather has made an additional round of review and comment, Mather is being asked to make an additional concession, an additional on-site improvement or off-site improvement that the hospital believes are not necessary and quite frankly are just not in the budget. In other words, Mather it feels like the project is, you know, experiencing experiencing a death by 1,000 cuts. The good news, though, is that Mather has agreed to make some of the more costly improvements that it was asked to make, such as the installation of a new traffic signal at its entrance. And in a few minutes, Courtney Riley will summarize the additional improvements that Mather has agreed to make. I'm also pleased to advise the board that Mather will make the necessary improvements to the recharge basin to meet the village's requirement for 3 inches of containment. That has been something that's been discussed for many, many months. It is a very, very costly endeavor for the hospital, but that's something that Mather is willing to make. We do think it has a nexus to the improvements. And so that's something that the hospital is willing to do. Unfortunately, however, there's always a catch. We don't know what those improvements will be at this time. And the reason for that is that, and I think some of you may know this, the village drainage system on North Country Road is actually connected to this recharge basin. Many years ago, the hospital was asked to allow the village to connect one recharge basin, an existing recharge basin that's located on the north side of the road, just south of the recharge basin. It was asked to have the catch basin connect to the recharge basin. It agreed to do that and granted an easement for the one catch basin. What we do know is that there's more than one that's connected to the recharge basin. What we don't know is how many more than one are connected. We know there's at least one additional one because we can tell from the pavement, the cut in the pavement, that the recharge basin on the south side of the road that was not there originally has now been connected and is piped through, or appears to be piped through. We don't know where it goes from there. You know, we don't know where the tentacles of the system go. So we don't know how much water is actually being, you know, how many unauthorized catch basins are connected and depositing water in the recharge basin. So until we know that, we really don't know what the appropriate fix is, what the improvements would be. So Mather's engineers are waiting for that. And at the appropriate time, once we know, we will make those improvements. So we are willing to make them. The work, though, for this recharge basin, it's coming up kind of late in the process. It wasn't part of the original budget. The money is just not available until 2022. So we're asking so that, as not to delay the project, that Mather be allowed, that the recharge basins be allowed to be made later, perhaps as a condition of a certificate of occupancy of the addition of the building, the ED and surgical services addition. And then that work could also, obviously, I'm sure the village would want it to be secured by a bond. So Mather has no objection to that. So
Anthony, just 1 second. You said it, monies wouldn't become available until 2022?
I'm sorry,
You meant
2023.
2023. Yeah.
My apologies. 2023.
2023, okay.
My apologies. I forget
No
which year. So yeah, basically next year. So that, you know, they'll put the money in, they'll do the work, but if we can just postpone that work to next year and just make it a condition of the C of O secured by a bond, Mather is okay with that. The other improvements that Mather is willing to make and has agreed to make, and I'm going to ask Dan Winkleman to go into it in a few minutes and elaborate, but those are the road geometry improvements along North Country Road that were requested. So those improvements will be made. In addition to some comments were made about the south parking lot and the improvements that needed to be made to the south parking lot. Mather will add curbing to the south parking lot and improve and clean up the parking spaces that are located in that lot so that they are in fact functional. Where the problems come in, and this is, I guess, the first one, the request for the bus turnout is problematic to Mather for several reasons. First, there is a physical impediment. In order to accommodate the turnout, it looks like 2 utility poles and a fire hydrant would need to be relocated. The second is that Mather's contractor has estimated the cost of the utility relocation and curbing that would be needed to be several $100,000. And the third reason that we believe militates against the turnout is the lack of ridership. According to Suffolk Bus, the Mather stop only experiences about 6 riders per day, 1.3 riders who board daily, and 4.7 who exit at this stop. And if those people, the 4.7 who exit, come on a particular shift, that's 1 stop. That, you know, they may not be 4.7 stops or 5 stops for the people who get off the bus. So simply put, the costs associated with creating the bus turnout clearly outweigh any benefit. And again, Mather would prefer to focus its financial resources on improvements that create an actual benefit, such as the improvements to the recharge basin, the traffic signal, the road geometry improvements, and not invest in a bus turnout that, based on the bus company's own data, will have limited utility. And then there was one last comment that came out in the last comment letter that we just received a few hours ago today. So you will recall that Mather had agreed to extend the sidewalk to the east side of what we call the IT Office and Learning Center building that's on North Country Road. We were asked to do that. We agreed to do that. Now, in today's comment letter, we're being asked to modify the curb cut to that building and to create a new entrance and to create a new sidewalk on the east side of the new entrance and add parking, curbing, and drainage to that portion of the site. And with all due respect to planning, I know they have, you know, planning goals in mind, but there's a reality to the situation, the financial reality. And we think that these, you know, these improvements are, you know, they belong on a wish list for future hospital improvements. There's just simply no money for this work. It's not part of the master plan. It's not part of anything that the hospital is looking to do now. So I would respectfully request that these improvements be considered when Mather seeks to make future improvements to this portion of the site and then revisit those issues. So I don't have anything further. I don't know if you have any questions. Otherwise, I would just introduce Courtney Riley to speak.
Anthony, before you do that, is it, I'm sorry, Laura.
I did just have a quick question. I noticed that you said you will add the curbing and the improvements to the parking of the south lot. So does that mean you're refusing to add curbing and improve the north lot?
No, we would also be correcting that area as well.
Okay. It was weird that it was just the so specific that I just wanted to make sure that I understood that. Okay.
Originally, we were not proposing to make the improvements to the south lot. That's why that was an issue. The north was always being addressed. The south lot was separate, but we are now making those improvements.
Got it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Anthony, so does that summarize the things you'd like to discuss and that you know, or does Courtney have more?
Well,
And
Courtney,
Dan have more than that?
No, it's, I would be speaking more to the drainage reserve area if you want to know more information on that. And Dan would be talking more towards the offsite improvements.
Okay. All right. I think, you know, wow, I'm surprised at the cost of it. I know the utility poles used to be expensive, and the number thrown around a few years ago was $25,000 a pole to move them. But I know there's a lot of stuff on those poles, and I know that was a few years ago. Plus, you've got the fire hydrant moving too. So I guess, you know, it seemed a little high, but 200,000 is probably pretty accurate for what they're asking. Courtney, why don't you, unless anybody has any other questions, or Jen?
Just wanted to, the comments that came up about the learning center and the IT building, the IT improvement, that the building was improved without a site plan amendment. And had Mather, I think, approached the planning board, those items would be part of that. It was formerly a garage, I guess, which is why there's no curb cut there. And it's fairly, there is also no drainage. But so those improvements, had they been part of a site plan amendment, probably would have included curbing, drainage, and rethinking that large expanse that's curbless right at that entrance because it's becoming a different use. And by doing that and creating an entrance now to a building that has a different use, you may be able to now provide the parking that's required for that use that's local to that area.
Okay.
And I can't comment on, I wasn't working for Mather at the time. I don't know when the work was done. But I believe it was
Anthony,
a while back. Wayne, you want to comment on that?
Yeah, the improvements that were done to that building, the only improvements were done was some internal improvements. There was no exterior improvements done other than siding on the building. So there, the only work that was done was some interior renovation, period.
But with all due respect, though, the use of the building was changed.
The use of the building was ambulances and offices for the ambulance corps, the Port Jeff Ambulance Corps. Now it's used for offices and training. So the ambulances had a training center within, and we have a training center for our staff, and they had offices to run the ambulance corps, and we have offices for some of our IT staff. So, did it really change? I don't think so. I think we're, maybe, but
I guess what Jen is trying to highlight is we're trying to do our due diligence here. This is our job. We're not paid, but we're trying to represent the village of Port Jeff, and this is the opportunity to do so. And I understand that you're saying, hey, if we make improvements in the future, but you're before us now, you're offering a master plan, which is my assumption, which is what was requested. So we're giving you a checklist of the things that need to be done. So.
Listen, I fully appreciate it. I'm a planner myself. Before I was a land use lawyer, I was a planner. I appreciate it, and I understand your job. It's just that, sometimes you have to balance the financial part with the planning part. And I don't know whether there's money that would be redirected to something that affects the master plan or affects the future development for something like we're kind of going backwards on that one. And I understand you do it when you can, or you try to do it when you can. There's just a reality. There's only so much money here. I think honestly, in hindsight, I think part of the mistake here is calling this a master plan. I mean, when we came in, we were asked by the village to kind of outline what the future might look like. So we didn't come in little increments. So by doing that, it kind of like exposed us to everything on the site. And the reality is, at least at this juncture, it should have just been the ED Surgical Services Edition. We could have come in just for that, but we wanted to be upfront as to what the future might hold. And
which is 100% appreciated. But, also on our end, there were things done on the site without proper, I don't even know. I mean, I don't even like the whole cath lab thing that's there.
that's all interior renovation, which we got building permits for.
I would love to, we could go back and review the tape. But I'm glad that you understand what I'm saying, Anthony, and what Jen is trying to say. And, hopefully we're not trying to hold up the project, but we're also trying to do our due diligence when it comes to this site.
Of course, understood.
Okay, why don't we have the rest of the presentation or comments or on your end,
Sure.
Anthony? So Courtney, I guess Courtney and Dan are next up.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'm just trying to share my screen, and Dan will also need to share his screen. So who's ever in charge of that, if you could let us.
All right, just give me a minute. Let me see if I can.
Sharing is caring.
You should be able to share your screen now, Courtney.
Great.
Good.
Are you seeing the plan?
Yeah.
You are, great. Okay, so this is our, currently our site, and I just wanted to go through a couple of the numbers and what's happening with the recharge basin. And as Anthony had mentioned, you know, we are going to be making some of these improvements, and I want to talk to, you know, what that looks like and why it is. So as you know, right now, the total site here is about 38 acres. The entire 38 acres goes into this drainage reserve area. So based on the village requirements, it would be almost 250,000 cubic feet of storage that would be required in this DRA. Okay. In the existing scenario, this drainage reserve area holds about 137,000 cubic feet. So holds a little, about half, give or take, about 55% of what would be required from the village standpoint of 3 inches. It holds half. When we did our future development and we built out the site, we broke these out into tributary areas. So you can see where the ED is, where the helipad, obviously the new parking lot, and then what's left is, let's say, E, which, you know, goes all the way up from here, which you can kind of see from the contours, and is essentially the rest of the site. So over about half the site we're developing. From that, in each one of these areas, required in the new required, because we are adding a significant amount of impervious area in area B, we're holding 134,000 cubic feet of storage. So this drainage reserve area is now we're going to be taking out over 14 acres, 13.8 acres out of this drainage reserve area. So we're taking a significant amount, as you could tell, of what would normally be going into this DRA out of this DRA and holding it in different dry wells or a storm trap system, which we've talked about before. What's left, and when we go and just look at now E, so it's basically the rest of the site, we're only touching a small portion here, which is a surface lot. So when we're left with E, we're still deficient by 36,000 cubic feet. Okay, so we went from over 112 cubic feet deficient to now 36,000 cubic feet deficient. So we're taking a good 70,000 plus out of this DRA. Okay, in order for us to make this drainage reserve area and make it meet the village requirements, we would have to take about 2.5 feet out of this drainage reserve area. Now, as Anthony said, we're still looking on what that actually looks like, you know, probably scraping the bottom, maybe putting some diffusion wells in there to help percolation. But that would make, when we expand this or make it deeper by about 2.5 feet and put on a 1-on-3 slope, this would make us meet the village requirements of 3 inches. And therefore, the site would meet the village requirements. As we mentioned before, this doesn't take into account what may be going into this drainage reserve area on the offsite, what comes in from the village. I know the village, and Jen and I have talked, I know you guys are looking into it, but we're still not sure how long, as Anthony said correctly, those tentacles go and what actually is coming into here from offsite. Does anyone have any questions? Because I know we talked about it at length last time, and this was one of the things at the last work session that we really tried to dive into, and now we have the numbers so you could see the significant amount that not only we, again, acreage and cubic footage putting on-site drainage and taking out of there.
So Courtney, so you're actually picking up 100,000 cubic feet with the improvements that you're making without yet doing anything to the recharge basin, is that correct?
That's correct. It's in total, it's 134,000 cubic feet we're adding of storage.
Okay. All right, I think we can come back, you know, we'll talk about each of these items that you've raised individually when we get through with you know, I guess with Dan's portion, and anything else you want to add to that too. And then we can backtrack and talk about them.
Sure. All right. You can let Dan share his screen. We'll go into the offsite improvements.
Good evening, Chairman, members of the board. I'm going to attempt to share my screen now. Everybody seeing that? Okay, so in the last staff letter that we got on December 6th, it asked us to consider offsite improvements along North Country Road, which would include installation of a 14-foot eastbound and westbound through lane and a separate 12-foot internal lane in the eastbound direction. And what would happen is from North Country Road at Oakland Avenue and Belterre, which is just off the page here, the roadway would divide into 2 lanes to go through the intersection of the site access, and then would quickly merge back together after the site access in hopes of giving this intersection additional capacity so it would operate better. In addition to this, the site access was looked at, and it was requested that we make a designated left turn lane and then a shared left and right turn lane. So 2 lanes could make a left turn out of the site to help reduce queues along the southbound approach from the hospital itself. So we looked at this, and what we were finding was that it's a fairly short stretch of roadway to widen and then come back quickly into 1 lane. And so if you were to have a vehicle stalled here to wait to make a left turn lane turn, somebody behind them might be waiting and might try to sneak out, and it might result in an overtaking accident. And then as you go through the intersection and you merge back in, there's another potential for a left turn accident. So we felt that we might want to look at this a little differently, and we're proposing a separate concept plan now where we do a similar geometric layout where we still widen the roadway and we come back in, but instead we make a designated left turn lane into the site. And that will remove the left turner from the through lane, so traffic's not being stopped in the eastbound direction. And then it still allow a dual left to come out of the site and then merge back in quickly. And since this will be less traffic, there's less opportunity for a overtaking accident to occur. To help with the turn out of the site, we're suggesting 2 12.5-foot lanes instead of a 14-foot continuation of the through lane. We're going to look at this a little bit more closely, but I think this is, you know, the range that we have to work with, and I think ultimately it works better. You typically want to have the innermost lane on the exiting traffic to be a little bit wider. So that's why we basically matched them in this direction. Getting a bad feedback here. Okay,
better.
All right. We've also implemented share the road bicycle signs on either end of the limits of our site and a little bit further. We put in the bike route designations. Some of the signage to get to the train station and the continuation of the bike route actually exist already. And we've added the pavement markings for the shared bike lane throughout our section of roadway. We looked at operations as well at this intersection, and we did provide the offset that you had requested between Oakland and the site access. And what we were finding is that if we were to, say, provide a separate phase for the left turn movement, a protected phase for the left turn movement, the queues in the westbound direction increase substantially. They basically double They go from about 200 feet to actually they go even more. They go to about 600 feet, which would be past the intersection of Pine Hill. If we take away the protected phase, the intersection still operates at level service A or B, depending on the time period, but the queues are not nearly as long that extend for when traveling in the westbound direction. This would be our proposed layout. Right now it's schematic, but we feel operationally it would benefit from not having the protected phase. But if the protected phase was requested, it would just result in additional queues in the westbound direction. And we'll share all these analysis results with you prior, so you can look at them in more detail. And because of the shared left turn, the dual left turn exiting the site, the small medical office use across the street would be limited to rights in and rights out. So we've restricted the left turns in and the left turns out of that site. And this, we're proposing a flashing red ball to alert them of they have to stop and make their maneuver. In terms of operations, if this were to not be the dual left, we could incorporate them into the traffic signal, and we could use video detection and allow them to come out at the access under the full control of the signal, as opposed to restricting movements in and out. So those are kind of the alternatives that we have to work with here, and we're kind of looking for a little feedback from the board in terms of what its preference would be, either tonight or after looking at these results.
Okay, that was good description of what you got in this plan, and I like your plan. I like this plan. I think it's very good. The only comment I had was that you do have that 12.5-foot lane eastbound, and you really should have a 14 with the bikes in there. And as you pointed out, the bike markings and the signs are the fact that it is an existing bike route. So you're trying to accommodate pedestrians, bikes, and cars as well. So I don't know if you could put, you got a very short distance where you have less than 14. If you can look into maybe some signing, so you wouldn't have to do the 14 going eastbound, because I know you're trying to minimize impact on the north side.
Yep.
But either way, look either way, but conceptually that looks good. I agree with you. You can provide the eastbound left turn without an arrow, except we had discussed providing an inside clearance between the two signals. So if you have an arrow come up during that inside clearance phase, that would be acceptable. If it's it would be a fixed time interval, whatever time you need going eastbound. And just to back up for everybody, I'll try to explain a little bit because it's traffic, so sometimes it's a little confusing. If you go back to the intersection, or the main intersection, which is on the left edge, you'll have a very heavy left turn volume coming down, as you know, on Belterre Road onto eastbound, to make the left turn onto eastbound North Country. That's very heavy. So if you turned, that traffic probably will stop at a red signal in a lot of cases, because we're really trying to improve the east-west flow on North Country. So providing a little time for any traffic there to get out of the way would be good. So if you're heading eastbound on North Country and you're approaching Belterre, you're getting a yellow signal. You want to be able to make it through that signal and hopefully make it through the new signal without stopping. I think maybe you need to, look at some cues and run some analyses, but that's what I was thinking. An inside clearance particularly going eastbound, would be important because when the light turns green on North Country at heading eastbound at Belterre, there may be a long queue of traffic from those left turners who had come off Belterre Road, waiting and kind of slowing things down. So that's probably the most important, direction to get rid of the queue on the inside. So, but I do
We
think
have this signal operating on a 10-second offset from this signal. So
okay.
we can look at that and make sure that it's accommodating that movement as opposed to the through movement. I think we were thinking it was the through movement that was the concern.
Yeah, it is. I guess it's a couple of concerns. It's the fact, maybe it's more, having the through traffic get a green signal on at Belterre and seeing a whole lineup of cars in front of it, because that's all the left turners that came off Belterre and they're stuck there.
Yeah.
So it maybe needs some, tweaking. But I think you're headed in the right direction. And I think you probably have enough input now to go ahead.
Yep.
But I like the second plan you developed. That's good. I think that small parking lot opposite on the south side of the new signal that's existing, I think, the overall plan is to deal with where the most traffic is coming from, and that's coming out of the hospital exit at that time. Having that double, the ability to make a left turn from 2 lanes on coming out is really going to reduce the queuing back on the hospital property, and maybe block, make sure that the first driveway there is not blocked with traffic waiting for a green signal. It'll get them out of there quicker. So I think that's the trade-off. I think that's better than allowing left turns out of the existing parking lot on the south side. It's a very small parking lot, and I think people coming to and from that site will adjust their trip so that they'll make a right turn in and a right turn out.
Okay. Yeah, we can certainly look at that. We can look at the bike lane dimensional for the through lane, and then we'll look at the southbound left and then the throughs and see how that all coordinates with the movement here and adjust the clearances.
Okay, good.
Can I
Go ahead,
ask?
Laura.
Yeah, this is for both of you guys because this is not my area. And it's about having the 2 left turns, Ray, out of Billhorn Way, which I never knew was called Billhorn Way. Very interesting name. Anyway, the 2 left-hand turns, the question, I understand why you want to do it, but is there enough room once you get onto North Country for all those people to merge back together without causing a buildup of traffic in the intersection and then people running that yellow light because they're trying to squeeze in thinking that people will be able to merge? Am I making sense? From
Yeah,
a
I think
traffic person.
I think what you're saying is we have those arrows with those arrows there. Is that distance long enough? Well, Dan has to just make sure that's designed in accordance with standards. That's a low speed move. It's not like a merge of 2 through lanes where vehicles are generally traveling quicker. Because
You know what I'm saying though is like, are we just creating the problem on North Country now instead of backing back on? Because I'm afraid people are going to be trying to merge, and then the people that are still trying to make the left-hand turn will say, you know what, I'm going to go out there, and the light will turn red for them, and they'll still be in the intersection.
So yeah, I mean, when we looked at it, we looked at those dual lefts coming out, and the next traffic signal is way down here. So the through lane is very long before they're going to meet up with any traffic signal queue from this intersection. And there are queues that extend here, but the volumes coming out of the site, even though they're in the 130 range per hour, and that will increase slightly, now that they'll have an opportunity to go east more easily from the site. But those volumes, I don't think that they're going to extend back, or that you're going to create congestion in here, because the through traffic really doesn't have anything to stop it until it gets all the way down to Edgewood.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I just, you know, experience, you sometimes you're like, I don't do traffic engineering, so just
That's
want to
okay.
make sure. Thank
Consider
you.
yourself lucky.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions for Dan or?
Yeah, actually, if I could, I think I really like the recommended plan. My only concern here is, again, as you mentioned, Ray, the bike route. How, you know, I mean, you look at this and it's 5 pounds, you know what, in a 3-pound bag, and you're just trying to, you know, there's not enough room at the point of the intersection where any bikes coming through, you know, it'll be very dangerous. I don't know if you can cheat a couple of feet on either side to get the additional room in that area, but I'd like, you know, without having to move any poles, and I get that, the cost, but as much as you can, because it is signed, if there is a sufficient room. Now, does that leave the village liable in case, well, I mean, if anything happened, everybody sues everybody anyway, but you know, I think you get what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Well, what we can do is we can look at possibly taking this 12-foot lane and kind of marrying up the existing double yellow that was there to get this a little bit wider and, you know, potentially push the stop bar back so that this is a little bit more of a gradual movement, and that will help with having a more a narrower acceptance lane. And then we could keep the 14-foot lane. We can model that with our simulations and see how those vehicle tracking paths would work under that situation. And then we'll cheat as much as we can and keep the alignment. We were kind of constricted by this one utility pole that's in a very unfortunate location and trying to maintain that 18-inch clearance.
Yeah.
So we couldn't really chamfer that curb anymore. Like we actually are chamfering the curb down here a little bit because it got a little close. We're able to do that. But unfortunately, that one utility pole was kind of causing a little bit of an issue there. But yeah, we can do what we can to narrow this up, make this 14 feet so we can get that 14-foot through lane to make sure that we can accommodate the bikes in the same lane and keep the 14-foot through lane on the other side.
Cool, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else for Dan before we backtrack and summarize some of the concerns that were raised in terms of budget by Mather? Okay, then why don't we go back and I guess the first thing that was brought up, Anthony, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, is the bus turnout and the cost. I think we talked a little bit about that. I believe at the last meeting, Gil had suggested you get the ridership there. And I'm surprised it's that low, but it's good that you did. I don't know, my personal feeling that if there's that few or that low an activity of passengers, that you could have a bus stop to discharge passengers and maybe block the through lane for 20 seconds or whatever it is while somebody gets off or on. It doesn't even look like maybe 6 riders a day total getting on and off. That doesn't even look like maybe you'll have a rider getting on when a rider is getting off. It might not even occur at the same time.
Could you talk to Suffolk Bus about relocating that bus stop further to the east? I mean, one of the concerns I had, and I'm not sure where it is in relationship to the plan we were just looking at, but if a bus had to stop in the westbound lane, obviously pulling over, now you've got people trying to make a left into the site, eastbound to northbound. You know, you've got a lot of stuff going on right there. If they could relocate the bus stop outside of this area, a little further to the west, maybe where the IT building is, or just so that when the bus is stopped on the road, which is where it's going to stop, even though it probably isn't supposed to, it's outside of all these movements that are going on.
Mr. Anderson, I actually, and Mr. Chairman, I didn't actually have the conversation myself. So Dan, do you mind chiming in because you made the phone call?
You're on mute, Dan.
Yeah, I just have 3 screens and my mouse was not cooperating. Sorry. Trying to figure out which direction to go with the screens. So I talked with Chris McVoy at Suffolk Bus, and he gave me the ridership numbers. We didn't talk about relocating the stop. We only talked about ridership. But one of my ideas was actually to kind of use that vast opening in front of the IT building as the stop, and said we do have the crosswalks now to help pedestrians cross through that intersection. So we could provide in this area instead, if that would be something that they would be willing to entertain. You know, we still have somewhat of a wider area here now that they could pull off and then come back into the stream of traffic. That is something we could look at.
Right. And you have the extended sidewalk there now, or you will have.
Yeah, we have the extension of the sidewalk. You have the crosswalk to get over to the site, and you also have the crosswalk to get across the street. The one going across the street, we could make we could put pedestrian signals across the driveway. Right now, it's only across North Country. But again, we are only talking about ridership of 6 people. So, and it's a T intersection essentially. So, they're going to have a good amount of time to cross. But that is something we could look at and see if Suffolk Bus would entertain a relocation of the bus stop to the west.
I think it's worth
To the
asking.
east, I'm sorry. Yep.
No, it's-
Yeah, you got it to the west where the existing stop is. You can see the sign there. Yeah, pushing it west. You do have that striped area, so you have extra pavement. Now it would be tough to really get rid of that. I mean, you don't want to, if somebody, let's say these markings were out there now and a bus stopped there. I mean, if I'm behind the bus and the bus is pulling over to the curve, I'm going to try to squeeze by the bus and I'm going to ride. Don't quote me on this, but I'm going to ride a little bit on that hatched area. It's flush, it's not, and go right. I'm sure people will do that. I don't know if you can look at the taper on that left turn lane a little bit, or maybe actually get a little bit wider of a travel lane in that area. Or actually, if you move the bus stop near basically where those right in that area, you have extra pavement width.
But you got a lot of action going on there. People trying to get ready to make, the turn down Stony Hill down. That's why I like the idea of in front of the IT building. It really shouldn't be, you're not eliminating a bus stop. And I'm going back to my former life, but it shouldn't be a big issue to take that bus stop and relocate it. Especially, you could justify it for the safety of the ridership, is just getting everybody away, trying to make the intersection a little simpler, if that's possible. But,
Yeah, I mean, I think you probably can work something out and, as you said, it's going to save a lot of money. So, based on the ridership, we're certainly willing to, take a look at that. And that makes sense based on the ridership.
Great, that's fair enough. Thank you.
All right, I guess maybe was the next one, the IT.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I think we were willing to do all the rest of make the other modifications. So IT is the next one.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, so I know Jen weighed in on the previous, we had a little bit of a discussion there. It's possible that we could, I don't know, defer that one till later. I don't know. We want to, maybe we'll go to the big drainage one. That's bigger in terms of cost and problems. And I know your request is maybe to defer. It's a big improvement. to do something there, you have some investigation to do, and you're looking to defer it to the CO stage, a little further in the property, or further in the project evolution and construction, actually.
Yes.
So if you make, just to, reiterate, if you make the parking lot improvements and the other improvements on the site without touching the basin, you've got a significant drainage improvement there. Not enough to accommodate the rainfall of 3-inch rainfall, but as you pointed out, there's some unknown contribution from the village in terms of catch basins. So I think, unless the board has other comments, I think we can, defer that at this time until you complete your investigation. Do you have an idea when that might be done, though?
Well, for what it's worth, all the improvements that we are making will have enough drainage as well as handle anything that we're improving within those areas. So the extension, the parking lots, everything we're doing will have that additional drainage. And so our request is that when we do start construction, we're going to be handling all the drainage on that north side, as we mentioned. On the south side, we're really not doing any work. It's an existing condition. And even though it's an existing condition, we're improving it so much more by taking that 13 to 14 almost acres out of that drainage reserve area. For what it's worth, we might even want to see, build all that to the north, build all that infrastructure to the north, and then honestly see what it does after that, right? Because not only does the village have to look into their own system and see what's connecting into that drainage reserve area, but I think we also have to see what's happening once we install and take out so much of the, what's going into there today.
I think,
And I can just,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to pop in to answer Anthony's question regarding the timing. I'm the one running point on getting the engineer hired to go over what we have. As Anthony had brought up earlier, it kind of seemed to happen organically. I don't really have a timeline for how much or what was attached and when and how that was handled outside of the one easement for the single structure. So that's happening currently and parallel to this process. I do expect that to actually move relatively quickly because especially as we continue to have larger and larger rainstorms, we have been having some failures in the area. So we do need to take care of that. And certainly there's a fire under the village's end. So from my perspective, at least, I don't know that I have a particular problem with this being a condition of approval with some sort of timeline and renegotiation there, or it's all on the front burner for everyone and we're all keeping eyes on it, but it doesn't stymie the rest of this because Anthony and his team are correct. It is more complicated because they don't know what else is going into that retention area. They could draw up a plan tomorrow guessing, but we don't know that that would be worth anything. So I don't know that there's a particular problem with making this, even though we don't love them, a forward condition to make sure it stays on everybody's radar. That's just my 2 cents.
If I could.
Yeah, this is Wayne Shaddis. To give a little background, we were well aware that the village was tying in on that one sort of grate on the north side of North Country Road. And I live in Miller Place, so I come in that way all the time. And there used to be standing water with heavy rain on the north side of North Country Road, right where that grate was put in and tied into the recharge basin. The village never came back to Mather Hospital to request additional, we want to tie in from across the street on the south side. So that was sort of unbeknownst to us, and we didn't receive permission from the village. So we gotta have to sort that out with the village.
Yeah,
Yep, we're all on the same page that we definitely need to sort it out. Yep.
If I could, I think the idea of making it conditional or making this, drainage investigation, drainage improvements conditional moving forward is a good idea. You're going to be going through a major stage of construction. I grant you, it's on the north side of the site, But during construction, and I know that everybody will say it'll never, you'll never have a big storm enough that'll run to the south end, but things happen. So once you're completed with construction, once we've investigated where the existing drainage extends to, you could make a determination on what improvements need to be made and make those improvements after we've gotten a little more information. But I think it is important that we make it conditional or make the approval conditional. I don't know the right terming, but just so that this can continue to move forward and give everybody time enough to collect the information that's needed. But nobody walks away from the drainage improvements at the end of the day.
Yeah, now Gil, you had also talked about scraping the top of the surface of the basin. Is that something that could be done during construction also to maybe improve the infiltration there?
Well, I think it would behoove the hospital to just do that to percolate the basin itself. Problem becomes, the material, what's in the material that's in there. How do you dispose of it? They could clearly take a dozer now, go down there and scrape away a little bit, and just move it to the side. I think for a long-term solution, they really need to get that investigation of the existing drainage extent. Plus, they need to know what they're dealing with after construction.
But Courtney, correct me if I'm wrong. It's not that simple because there's always water in it. So
but you can go in there.
Yeah, so we have, again, we've already started to talk with, the contractors and looking into doing, how would we even take soil borings right now, right? With the amount of water that's in there now, and I agree, scraping that. So, this is something that we're actively working with Northwell on and Mather Hospital. Again, really diving into, how to make and improve this drainage reserve area, for the site. And
If I may, if you brought a crane in with a decent arm, popped a few holes through there, it might allow percolation through so that you could continue I'm not saying necessarily get a dozer and push it through, but with a crane, you could reach in there, grab some of the muck out, allow some of the percolation to take place, and then you could maybe do some work. I know the hospital doesn't have a crane sitting on staff. I mean, that's
right. I mean, listen, I think there's lots of different options. We could also try to, de-water it and add it to a drainage, catch basin further north. And so this way, when it percolates down, further, it gives ourselves some time. We're working with contractors right now to figure out the best way so that we can do a proper analysis, get those soil borings, get the percolation rates. Again, we're going to be taking a significant amount of water out of, off of this, a burden off of this drainage reserve area. And we're hoping that with some of those improvements too, that maybe that water level goes down, right? And then we're able to do what we need to do. But obviously it takes time. And I think waiting until after that construction is done and that's installed, really helps us navigate what we need to do to make this a better recharge basin.
Yeah, and I think just if you can, and I'm sorry, just one last thing, as long as it's conditional so that, and not that the hospital would, but so that nobody forgets about it and then they get caught up in something else. It does need to be addressed at some point.
But it would also be secured by the bond.
Yeah.
So, so that, we will never forget.
And I can tell you, Gil, it's not falling off my radar anytime soon either. It's pretty much in my top 10.
I was gonna say I have full confidence that Allison will we'll keep on top of it.
It's sitting in my top 10. Don't worry about it. I've got this.
As long as that village pipe is going in there, right? No one's gonna forget.
You may have my attention. Yes, you have my attention.
Laura's been waving her hand for the last 5 minutes.
I know, when you have a question and you don't want to forget it. I had a quick question for Courtney. When you were going over your numbers and the thousands of gallons and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Not to blah, 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 your significant, that sounded awful. But did I understand that you're still short?
We are, and that's why we need to make it go a little bit deeper. So,
Okay.
so
Or-
right.
Yeah.
ahead.
Well, okay. So what if you did a garage instead? Would that be so much more cost prohibitive, or would it actually save you from all this extra drainage?
No, because I would just add more impervious area. So right now, the entire drainage basin holds 137,000 cubic feet. Okay, that's what it stores in that area.
Okay.
What would be required before we did any of our improvements is 250. Okay, so it's not even meeting half.
Right.
After we do a lot of our improvements, and we are adding impervious area, and we're adding, over 100,000 cubic feet of storage, we're still negative 36,000 cubic feet. So what we would need to do is we would need to do a couple things. Maybe it's scrape it out, maybe it's make it a little bit bigger, based on the existing condition. The problem we're running into is that we don't know what else is going into it. So if we were to correct it right now, if we were to correct it right now, we would have to go about 2.5 feet deeper. And I actually have a sketch that I could pull
So
up.
we don't have to go into the whole
Okay.
weeds of it. I just want to make sure that when we address all of this and when we bond it out, that we make sure that, and once we find out what the village is doing, that there is no deficit, that whatever the
Correct.
improvements are. Okay.
Yeah,
I just
that is
wanted
our
to make
intention.
sure. Okay. Okay.
Right. And again, a lot of this has to do with modeling. It might be making it 2 feet deeper. It might be just scraping out the bottom and just like we said, putting diffusion wells in it. The way we calculate it right now is we count that top of water as almost if it's pavement, right? You can't percolate through water, right? So the way we calculate it right now is that high water line, that's our base, that's our bottom. Now, for all we know, that water could be 2, 3, 4 feet deep, and we just need to scrape out that it percolates down, and then we don't have to do anything. So we did a conservative approach and as our high water is, that's our bottom, but it does go deeper.
Okay. Got it. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions on these issues or for the applicant?
I sort of have a question about drainage, since there are a number of people here who know a lot about it.
My favorite.
Good, because I really don't quite understand. In the environmental assessment, there's mention of interflow and base flow, and I understand basically what those are. When you capture all of the sort of all tributary areas except E with this storm trap system and others, is the diffusion then in the recharge basin, does it offset, because that water is eventually going into the soil, it's just more slowly, correct?
Right.
When it's in these in these sort of storage containers, subsurface storage containers. So is no percent of that water, does no percent of that water get to the recharge basin, or does it get there slowly enough so that it's diffused when it gets there? And this is more for my edification.
Sure.
I'm not trying to challenge your number.
No. Great question. So when we do our calculations, we do it purely off volume, vertical feet.
Right.
So whether it be the vertical feet of a storm trap chamber, or we do it off of the vertical feet of a dry well, we take what's required by the village, and that's what we're capturing as if it had no bottom, it had no sides, as if it was like a container. Okay. What happens in reality is it does percolate, and the elevation difference, as you know, between the top and the bottom is pretty great. We did soil borings, and those soil borings went down about 100 feet, and we never encountered groundwater. So now we know that that entire diffusion well, the entire dry well, or the entire storm trap chamber, is percolating into the ground. When we do our modeling, so volume wise, that's how we calculate it, and we meet village requirements.
Right.
When we do our modeling, specifically whether it be for the SWIP or looking at the recharge basin, we take into account that percolation rate. So if water does go into that dry well, does it get into that recharge basin? And based also on the elevation difference, in some cases, it never gets there, right? Because at that top elevation, those contours are in the 200 range. Your recharge basin is, in the 160 range. So you have a good 60 feet where it's going to percolate and it'll never get down there.
Right.
But that's how we do it. It's called HydroCAD. That's how we model it. So the majority of what's happening on the north, little to none of it will really get to that recharge basin once it goes into the ground.
Gotcha. Thank you. That was very
Explain
clear.
it? Okay.
Yep.
Better than the traffic explanation I gave. I think, and back to the IT office, we have a bit of a difference of opinion here. I think, maybe the best approach is for the planning and zoning planning department and the board to mull that one over. We understand what you're saying. We certainly understand Jen's points as well. So I think maybe that's an issue that we'll kind of mull over and discuss and get back to you in the future.
I would like to mention one thing that wasn't brought up is on the parking itself. It should be noted that the majority of people that are using that building are traversing between the hospital and that building. And so when you look at it, whether it be on our plans or on Google Earth, a lot of the vehicles that would be necessarily in that lot, those people are already parked for work, in that, on the hospital campus already. So it should be noted from a parking standpoint. And while obviously the village has their requirements, that those people are essentially already parked there.
Okay. Any other things we'd like to discuss or before?
I just have a question, Mr. Chairman. On that issue, we look forward to the response after you speak with staff. But is that something that we would know before the hearing? Because we would like, we'd like to understand where the village is going with that, rather than have that kind of play out in the public hearing.
I understand.
Just if possible.
I think it's possible. I don't know. We've got what, is it 4 weeks? Yeah, it's four full weeks, I think.
We also have a meeting before the public hearing.
Right.
On the 3rd.
The 3rd, right.
No, that's correct. Right. So sure. We could discuss it and get back to you probably at that meeting or have the discussion and maybe come to some sort of resolution on it. So we can certainly put you on that agenda, I would think is not a problem.
Okay.
Or on a work session.
As a work session, right. Okay,
Yeah.
great. Yeah, terrific. Thank you.
Okay.
I have one more quick question for Dan and for the board. And it's partly my fault because I didn't know the sidewalk that's proposed along the North Country Road frontage. That's right on the road. There's no planting strip in between. Was I reading the plans correctly?
No, there would be a planting strip.
Oh, good.
Yep.
I saw one there, but on the
This is very
side,
schematic, but
right,
yeah.
but on the west side, so yes.
Right, so there is a planting strip, but it's, are you saying the west side of the?
Yes, so you're in the section of sidewalk and frontage so it looks as if it's the sidewalk goes around the pole. So if the planting strip took into account the utility poles that are already there and you pushed it just a bit to the north and gave yourself some room, is that possible?
It's because the poles out there don't, they're not very well aligned with the existing edge of pavement. They're sporadic, and we were trying to avoid going too far back. We had issues with the hydrant, the drainage, the actual intersection itself. So we felt it was best to just keep the sidewalk along the curb and not
That's
have.
really
the-
close to traffic, though.
Yeah. And that's like, again, I think to that point we were discussing before, you know, the putting that sidewalk immediately behind the curb, you know, could potentially put a pedestrian in harm's way if somebody's trying to get around another person as they try to maneuver to the next intersection. I would suggest, as Jen is taking a look at moving it back a little bit, at least in the immediate vicinity of the intersection.
I think there, because on the other side of the street, there is a planting strip.
Mhm.
And the planning board just recently at the intersection of Main Street and North Country Road, that was, a requirement of the sidewalk along, because traffic travels pretty quickly, fast along North Country Road. And as a pedestrian, being right, there's no, there's no parking to sort of give you a buffer between traffic.
Yeah, we can certainly look at the alignment, and if the board was okay with, in some instances where we have, say, the 3-foot minimum passing along the pole, so we can, give a little bit of room over here and have the pole encroach the sidewalk only minimally, I think we can certainly work something out. It may not be a consistent mow strip, just because of the utilities, but we can do our best to give a little green space in there, protect those pedestrians.
Great. Because we do have it on the other side of the street as well,
Yeah,
which is
yep.
good
Yep.
and helps.
Because the
Okay.
utility poles are on our side.
I know.
And a widening walkway along that north side wouldn't be the worst thing in the world either.
True.
Similar.
There would be an easement, right, from, after it's constructed, and the village would maintain that? As it's outside the property, outside the.
I think the intent is for you to dedicate that property to, and the sidewalk would be village property.
Isn't it on village property now?
I thought that.
It looks like it's all contained right now on
an
village property.
Right.
Okay.
And the village.
Possibly it was on maybe going up Belterra Road where there was some dedication needed. I don't remember. Because the property line was getting very close to the roadway along.
Yeah. If you look on
on the
where
edge.
the sidewalk is, that little serpentine thing where it goes onto, right there where the hand.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, the intent would be for the village to maintain that.
Well, I do have a question about that though, because when it snows, I think it's on the Belterra Road sidewalk. It's Mather Hospital's responsibility to plow the sidewalk. Is that not correct?
So
Because the
under
village
village code, everyone, whether the sidewalk is on your property or not, it is the responsibility of the adjacent property owner to clear the sidewalk. So that's whether you're a single family dwelling, you're a place of business, that's under the code. I can say that we work pretty well and extensively with BID, the BID district, and a lot of that does get contracted out. The village does work with the BID to do East Broadway, to do the sidewalks along Main Street. There's usually some BID money and agreement to be made on some of the properties for that, particularly in areas that are very heavily traversed. But under the code, like pretty much every municipality code I've seen, regardless of who has it, whether the sidewalk is on property or not, you're required to maintain snow clearance on anything adjacent to that private property.
Okay, because I believe last year there was a problem where the sidewalk was not, on the Belterra Road side, was not cleared in a timely manner and people were walking in the street.
Happens all the time, everywhere. Yeah.
Yes.
Unfortunately, yeah.
On North Country Road, it'll be the same thing, that Mather will be required to clear the sidewalk after snow. On the North Country
That's what,
Road.
again, that's what the code reads. Outside of that, I can't say because I'm not the DPW department, so I'm not actually involved in the contracts.
Okay.
They stick me into a lot of different areas, but working out who actually takes care of which sidewalk, not currently on my plate. But all I can tell you is what the code has requires and how the village has handled it in the past. Are there always going to be outliers? Yes, particularly right now in the COVID times where we're having difficulty finding contractors. It could be tricky, but that could be just as tricky for a private entity trying to do it or the village trying to do it. We're all kind of in the same boat on that right now.
Understood.
Alex, could I ask just also on the process? So as part of this, we have submitted some architecturals on the ED. And I know you do have an architectural review. Is that done at the public hearing? Is that done before a public hearing, after a public hearing? Where does, when do we invite our architect
The village
friends?
has the village has an architectural review committee. It's not a binding board. It's an advisory committee. Upon the request of the planning board, it can be referred to the ARC for comment. So that would be based, up to the board's discretion whether that's happening. If that's something they want to consider doing, I would suggest the board consider making that decision this evening. That way it can be sent over to the ARC because we'd like to have comment back as quickly as possible. I can say they will call a meeting pretty much at a drop of a hat. They answer pretty quickly. Their review is quite thorough, but they don't hold standing meetings. So it's not like you have to wait till the next one. It's really when can they all get on a Zoom call together. So it's something that can happen in parallel and does not have to be hashed out at the public hearing. So again, if the board wishes to go down that route and to get some comment from the ARC, I would ask you that you consider doing that today so we can get that moving.
Sure, and how's the board feel about that? I mean, that's okay with me. I think that's a good idea. Get them involved. And as Allison said, they get comments quickly and their comments have been, in the last couple of projects have been very, very, very good. Very constructive comments. Everybody feel okay with this? Feel okay with that? Okay, so we'd like to do that then. Yeah.
And again, like Ray said, you do get very, very excellent constructive comments. You're not going to get something big like it should feel more nautical. Like, what does that mean? Do I turn the hospital into a boat? Like, I don't know what that means.
Yeah, and then
so
understanding if they're
they
not
give strong comment.
okay. And then if I understand on the discretionary side, it's again, not to slow down any of the processes that we have, that would need to be done before the public hearing, or if done in conjunction to, is that part of
It can be a parallel process heading towards decision. It can be a parallel process heading towards decision.
Okay. And if we received like a site plan approval, it would be a condition of that said approval.
You're going to get comment well before that.
Yeah.
Again, if we send it to them, I think one of their members may be traveling. Other than that, 2 weeks would be the outside timeline for comment from them. Okay. Again, it's how quickly can they get on a Zoom call, and they are a hardworking board. They take what they do very seriously, but they also are not going to hold you up with hemming and hawing and thinking about it for months at a time. And then you don't have to make those cats march in a parade. They do their marching on their own.
Okay. And sorry, one more thing on process. So right now before us, we have the comments that were given to us on December 15th and December 6th. And obviously I know you guys want to talk offline about the IT office. We would like to, and I think we got a lot of great answers today, and I really appreciate that, address those comments and get everything back in. Once we have, is our hearing based on us, VHB and team, responding to all those comments and getting you updated plans? Is that part of?
Ideally,
I'd say yes, if possible, to be able to do it. I know the turnaround's pretty tight because we were in a position where the village was willing to have the public hearing right now without those questions answered. And as I put it to you and your team, do you want this all happening there or not? I mean, because as we discussed before, traditionally with projects of this size, we have an opening public hearing. it then tends to be held open for 30 days in case there's any additional comment. Then it's closed, and then the decision process would go forward. I mean, I believe, and I'm speaking perhaps out of turn, but seeing as we were in a position where we were going to put you to public hearing without these questions answered, I don't see why we wouldn't go to public hearing. If we're just waiting for some additional drawings that could catch up. I mean, do the best you can, get us as much as you can.
Okay, yeah,
but-
and I think the big ones, you know, right now we have a lot of the big answers, you know, so I feel like, you know, if there was that little bit after, then it's not as big. I feel like we, you know, we have, and obviously we've met already once on the comments, so, okay.
I'd say whatever isn't going to be covered on the plans, make sure it's included in your narrative for
Understood.
presentation.
Okay.
Right. Anything else? Any other issues? Any comments from the board? Any questions? from
Yeah,
anybody?
I would just like to point out once again that the residents on Belterre and Westview are taking the brunt of this new project, and that there are noise problems existing now. And I think that Mather should be addressing the HVAC units on top of the Medical Arts Building, which is adding to the noise issue. You know, it's not in compliance with the decibel level code of the village, and I'd like to see that put into compliance. I do have to compliment you on the plantings and other things that you're going to do along Belterre Road to help the people that live there, but noise is a real issue. I had company over the holidays, and they kept on going to the window at night saying, "What is that noise? What is that noise?" And one of your HVAC units is on the fritz. And I think you know that because there were some maintenance men on top of the roof looking at it. But it's an ongoing issue, and I think that Mather really needs to address it. It's been going on many, many years now.
So we do have some acoustical folks on the line if we wanted to get into it, Mr. Chairman, that can walk through our sound study, or we can also just maybe do that offline, you know, with the planning staff to walk them through, you know, as far as the new project, as far as the existing or the proposed building, you know, we have a 12-foot screen wall. We've taken this into account in our noise analysis, and we have looked into the noise. I will say, and I know there was a comment, it's called M2, and where Belterre was, it was 1 decibel over the outside limit of the village requirement at night and existing condition. And we also, when we look through our noise analysis, you know, there is a significant, you know, noise just coming from existing traffic there. But your point is definitely taken, and we can, you know, certainly look into it. But it, you know, it is an existing condition a lot from, you know, the existing just traffic that passes through there. But if you like, we could dive into it a little bit more. We do have the professionals online if you want to get into it, or we can go through it with Jen and Allison and the fine tooth comb as well.
I think.
I know.
Go ahead, Barbara.
I was going to say, I know that a lot of people feel it's the traffic, but it's not the traffic at 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m. It's definitely, and especially during the summer when the AC unit is really humming along. You know, it's an issue.
Okay.
And I think that now that you're doing this project in that area, I think it's a great time to address it. And can those units be retrofitted with screening?
You know what, I think we could take, why don't we, we'll go back to the table, we'll take a look at our study and see and talk to Northwell and Mather as well as about maybe the one that wasn't working during the holiday time, and see if there's a screen at least on the Medical Arts Building. But for everything proposed, I will say that we are meeting, you know, the village standards.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that would be good. If you can get that information to planning staff, that would be good. Jen, did you have a question? question?
Just,
Yeah.
If we could sort of start the seeker process tonight, that would be helpful. So
Yes.
I think I've recommended that. Referral letters have been sent out. I've been told by a number of entities they've received the files, no comments yet. They have until I think February 8th, I think, to get comments in. But I don't anticipate the board getting any challenge to being lead agency. So if you'd like to classify the action as a type 1 and then declare yourselves lead agency, that's a step forward.
Okay, yeah, we should do that. Is that two separate motions, or can we do that in one?
I don't know.
Do two.
I would do two.
I prefer
Why not?
it as two, please. Sorry, I stepped away from my computer.
Okay. All right, so the first is to assume the lead agency, correct? And then classify?
The first would be to classify it
Yeah,
as a type
Of course,
1.
I got it backwards. I had
No,
a
that's
50-50
okay.
I had a 50-50 chance. Yeah. So can I get a motion from a board member to classify the action as a type 1 in accordance with SECRA?
I'll make the motion to classify it as a type 1.
Can I get a second? Barbara, Laura's seconding. We saw your hand.
Yes,
Okay.
sorry, I'm muted.
All in favor?
Aye.
And then a second motion to have the planning board assume lead agency on this project. Motion. Anybody want to?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, second,
I'll do it. again.
Laura. Okay, all in favor? Aye. Okay.
Thank you.
Did you have something else, Jen?
No, that's it. A referral was also sent to Suffolk County Planning Commission, and
Good.
hopefully they'll have comments back to us before the next work session, or the 3rd. Yeah.
Good. Okay, anybody else? Any comments, questions before we move on? All right, thanks for the information, and I think we had a productive discussion, and we'll see you at the work session on the 3rd of February.
Terrific. Thank you. Thank you
Good.
all very much.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Right.
Good night.
Good night.
Okay. All right. Lisa's getting very proficient at eliminating people. It's like
They actually took care of themselves. It's like, that's the thing I gotta wait for, is if everyone's gonna get off the call very quickly, I
That's
can't
right.
start clicking on names or it goes all
Yeah.
crazy.
They don't want us to change our minds, so they logged off on their own. I got it. Okay. All right, we want to move on next to the last item, I believe, on the agenda. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes, it's 415, 417 East Main, and I guess you want to admit.
Let me bring in Heather Brent.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, had to start video and sound. Good evening, everyone. Hope everyone had a great New Year and stayed healthy.
Yeah.
So do you want me to present what we submitted, or you want to talk about it? What's the
Yeah,
protocol?
so the board hasn't had a chance to look at these, nor did they get a detailed staff report. So I thought maybe you could just walk us through the changes that you made and the way that the comments were addressed from the previous submission.
No
And
problem.
if you want to share your screen, or if you want me to put I can put the plans up on my screen. I don't know which is easier.
If you can put the plans up on your screen, that would be greatly appreciated.
Okay.
So this current submission, we heard what you were all talking about and some of your concerns, and hopefully we're addressing them. And we look forward to hopefully moving forward with this. So first and foremost, you had a question about the easement documents. We provided easement documents for you. Second issue, building drainage. We're on a locked site. There is very little place to put anything for drainage, but I understand that the village wants to improve. Whoops. Okay, here we go. Sorry.
Sorry, I just brought it up. I don't know if I'm interrupting by doing that.
Heather, can you go backwards to the easement? Just
Yes.
describe what that is.
What an easement is, or what this
No,
easement
what
is?
this particular easement is.
It's
Just to refresh our memory.
documented. It's a driveway easement onto the property. And you guys had a question about access, and hence us providing you easement documents to show that we do have legal easements, so we can access the property in the back and for garbage or whatever else we so need to do.
Okay.
The second issue, if I may, is the building drainage. As I noted, sorry, I don't know, Lisa, or is that Jen? I think Lisa's doing it. We made a submission as part of the drawings to actually create a small area in the back that we could try drain. The problem we have is that there's very little area on the property to drain. So we will do the best we can to provide some drainage on it. But realistically, on Main Street in East Main, there's no place to put drainage. So as an existing building, and I told there are similar situations that you guys have approved. 227 Main Street across the street had a change of use from office to retail.
If I can just say that I think we need to focus on this project and not other projects in the village. We don't have all those analyses in front of us. We do always request drainage on major renovations and changes.
Which is why I made included in the drawings to include drainage.
So, but I think that getting in the weeds of talking about projects that aren't before us, where we haven't reviewed those and we don't have the files in front of us, is just off topic. Let's focus on the building that you're proposing. And
I'm saying that
build up.
what we're proposing to do on this building is change the use, conditional use from business to residential for level 2 to 3. The retail and will remain on the first floor as it is currently. There is a clothing store as part of it, and the other one is a real estate office and what used to be lighthouse. Sorry, it was a photography place. They've moved out, but that space is going to remain retail. So my point to you is you guys want us to maintain the drainage on the property, and absolutely, that's part of the proposals. We've included something in the back that can drain. Understand we don't have a large area to drain, and we can only go X number of feet down. But my point to you is there are other buildings across the street that had a business to residential that didn't have roof runoff and still doesn't, and didn't have parking issues and still doesn't, and
Heather,
they got approved.
Heather,
So my point is we're looking to do.
Heather,
sorry?
As Lisa said, can we just stay on this project and not try to compare it to other projects?
Well, that's standard in planning, is whatever you've approved prior. It's no new rules for new people, anyone coming in.
Again, we don't have the files in front of us, and we don't know why some of those things were done. And there may be other extenuating circumstances or reasons why we did it, or prior boards even, maybe not this board either. So let's just
no problem whatsoever. So the
let's
next
focus
issue,
on the comments and the revisions that you made.
No problem. So the next question you guys had, so you look at the drawings, you'll see a proposal to do a bit of a roof runoff as best as we can in the back to accommodate, similar to what others have done. The next issue you guys had was your question about, so basically what we will contain as much as we can on that, but understand it is an existing building that is built out on 2 sides to the street.
Heather, can I ask you what page the drainage plans and calculations are on, so I can show them?
Okay, hold on.
Maybe I have the wrong plans in front of me.
Sorry?
I'm just trying to see if I assume this was in the main plan you submitted.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't know that was Lisa, correct?
Yes.
Okay, bear with me for a sec. We submitted, sorry, I'm just pulling over my drawings as we speak and seeing if I can find out where we noted it. Back of the building, I think it was the survey lost page. I think, let me take a look. It's been a little while since I looked at this drawing. Bear with me for a sec. Ah, shoot. Computers work well when you want. Okay, not on that one.
So this is the last page of the.
Yeah. I'm looking. It's just been a little while. Let's see if I can find it. Or unless it was on the submission itself. Might have been in the submission. Bear with me for a sec. I'm looking where we put it. The documents, we got 12 sheets and it's gonna get bigger. So I don't know if we submitted with that or in the submission, the oral or whatever else. So bear with me. I don't see in the drawings right away, but I know it's there. So I'll look for it and I'll let you guys know as soon as fine. But what we were proposing is in the back of the property, a gravel area similar to what has been done on other properties that are existing, to get the roof runoff as best as we can, to maintain, to take as much as we can. So it's not in the drawings that I could see, and I'm trying to see where. Yeah, our proposal is to do, yeah. We propose to have an area in the back of the building where we will attempt to retain as much of a 3-inch rainfall event as possible, considering the limited options available. This should not hamper the application moving forward. It can be a final condition upon approval, is what our request is. Similar to what you've just done with Mather. The next, can I move on to the density question? Oh,
yes, I can stop sharing, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, it's sorry, everyone. And it's the end of the day, and I appreciate you guys' patience because I'm sure everyone's tired. So the next question you guys had was regarding density. So we have 12 units in this. Our proposal is to do 12 units. It was originally required 40 parking spots, and then it came down to 20 odd. So we're decreasing the density in that regard. You guys have requested that we keep to a 45 units per acre. That was apparently noted in the village comprehensive plan. FYI, I've gone through the comprehensive plan and I emailed the building department, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. It's actually not noted that you guys are requiring 45 units per acre. If I understand it, you've approved new construction that ended up being around 45 units per acre. So my question for the building department was, I'm not seeing it in the comprehensive plan that it states that all new renovations or new construction should comply with 45 units per acre. Didn't find it in the comprehensive plan. There's nothing that literally states you must do. What is said in the building, in the code, is that we have, you guys designated 400 square feet per apartment, 1 bedroom, which we originally had slightly smaller, and I went through all the floor plans and changed all the apartments to minimum 400 square feet. So we're complying with the density requirements that the village has designated for apartments. In regards to the request for 45 units per acre, you're welcome to address that, but I'm not seeing anything that designates that we have to. So I'll leave that to you guys as to how you want to address that. Also, it's been noted by somebody else in your board that it's not codified. So from an architect standpoint, if somebody says it's not codified, therefore it's not the law that requires us to do that. What is required by law is that we have to do 400 units square foot per unit, which we have done. You guys also were concerned about elevator. So we did put an elevator on the property. Understand we've got different floor heights for the 2 different buildings, because these are old buildings that were moved there about 100 years ago. So the floor heights do differ, but we have found a way to connect them so that we can put an elevator. Lisa understandably was concerned that the elevator footprint was, there was a small little corner that was on village property, and I took that off, and you'll see that on the drawings. I bubbled everything that was changed. And so if you see the plans and elevations and such, Lisa, you're welcome to put up the drawings if anyone had a question or access them.
Yeah, we'll take a look at those.
So yeah, the elevator, I changed the footprint, so it's now all contained on this property. And so density, I believe that we're complying in regards to the designation that we've done, what you guys designated, and we're complying with that. Next question, you guys, in addition to which, Suffolk County, one of the biggest challenges on Long Island is that there's no entry-level housing. So those of us who, thank you. Yep. If you, Lisa, if you can go down to the first floor, you'll see the elevator in the back. One more level down. Yep, there you go. So the elevator, sorry, that's the front, not the back. The elevator is bubbled. And what's also bubbled is you guys requested additional notes about square footage and dimensions. So I've added those things that you guys have requested and bubbled everything that you've asked me to do, I believe. You can let me know if I missed something. In regards to density, we're looking at 12 total units. We're not looking at 50, 66, 100, 50. We're looking at 12 one-bedroom units that are entry level. That is at the price point for those of us who have kids who are coming out of high school or university and need an entry-level apartment or just starting out as a family. And that is what as well as possibly students from the university. I don't know what the village thinks in that regard, but there's different options. And we'd like to keep it to those 12 units. Like I said, it's not a huge amount, not compared to Shipyard, Over Bay, and Port Jeff Crossing. The next thing, so in addition to it, I just wanted to say Suffolk County has requested, you guys have told us we have to go to Suffolk County.
No, I think you misunderstood that comment. That was a comment to the planning board. We're required because of the general law to refer projects in our municipality to Suffolk County. And that's our responsibility when a project's deemed ready, that we have to do these referrals and see if they wish to make comment or if they deem it a matter of local determination. But that's
sorry,
not, that was
apology.
not an action point for you.
No, my apology, misunderstood on my part. So my only point to you is what Suffolk County noted in the documents is we're sorely missing with entry-level type of apartments for the young people who are just starting out. And we don't want to put them in basements, or some parents may like it, some may not, but not all parents want their kids to come back in their 20s or 30s. So we're hoping for an entry level that people can still be in the village and be near their family, but they're not necessarily on top of each other post-COVID. I know we've all done exceptionally well in such a trying time, but I'm sure some people would prefer a little separation from their kids. Not me, but not yet. But anyway, so I just wanted to let you know the Suffolk County Planning Commission, what they're basically saying is they want us to reuse existing buildings and so that we don't overdevelop the area. And by reusing this building, we're actually complying with what they hope, which is reusing existing so that we're not taking up empty property and developing that, because that long-term goal is to keep as much of our open area according to Suffolk County planning. So that's that point. In regards to additional things that you asked about, as I mentioned, the elevator, I did change it. So my little error, I put the little corner that was on village property, I brought it down. Dumpster plan, I included dumpster enclosure documents, I believe, in the submission. So I understand that you guys, yes, the last page. You'll see the dumpster enclosure drawing as you guys have requested.
It looks like this is just from the, is that from the village code?
I don't recall where it's from, but this is what you guys wanted, is a dumpster enclosure. So that's what we're providing. You want something different?
Just usually projects have very specific materials and designs that they have chosen and selected, and just looks like, yeah, I was just clarifying.
No, you guys did a great job of letting us know what you wanted, so we have no objection to doing it. Okay, that's all I'm saying is, I know you guys wanted enclosure, so I included drawings for you guys, and hopefully by reusing your example, that's what you guys like, and we have no objection to that. Sounds great. You had additional question about the retail and residential uses. As I noted, first lower level, the main level is staying the same, except that the real estate office is getting smaller so that it becomes a real estate office and also a rental office for the units for up above. So if you look at floor plans number 1, sorry, I got trifocals. So floor plan number 1, you'll see where the lighthouse, I think I have the term correctly. The photography studio, they've moved out, but that's going to maintain as retail. That space is not changing. I did bubble it because I know you guys wanted dimensions and such. The real estate office also didn't change, except it got a little bit smaller. And what happened is I included a laundry area, and you guys requested square footage and dimensions, which I've added, and the storage area and such, dimensions and sizes that I've added. So as you can see, we're still keeping the first floor as retail, and small business in terms of real estate office is also going to be the rental office for the community, for the building. And I also put the amenities in there and included it. And last but not least is lighting. You guys requested lighting, so I included cut sheets of lighting that is similar to the lighting that you have in the village, i.e. I live in the village, I love the aesthetic of it. So obviously we want to continue that aesthetic, which is why I included the lighting option. And the lighting actually that I chose is specific. I know there's concern about the bright light. So there is dark sky. So it minimizes light pollution in the night sky. So I understand we don't want to bug anybody, ourselves included. So I've chosen a light fixture that does well within downtown areas, but will also not aggravate the surrounding community with bright light. And it's also a wet location. And that's about it. Do you guys have additional questions or concerns?
Well, before I ask for questions from other board members, I'm interested in the elevator revisions. I think we had 2 issues, right? It was shown on private, a little bit on public property. So what you did was you moved the actual elevator enclosure, is that correct?
I cut off the corner. I took the corner off because I just need the 5-foot turning radius. So instead of it being square, I took a corner off and I still have my ADA 5-foot turning radius. So yeah, if you look on the first, Lisa, if possible, can you scoot the drawing over a bit so we could see or zoom out? Yeah, there you go. So the key was the 5-foot turning radius. So I'm still keeping that. And I just made sure that it was kept on this property rather than any village property. And if you want to see on the survey, it's the last page, you'll see it clearer in terms of where the property line is and where the proposed elevator and lobby is, right there.
Okay, in terms of the floors, so there's different elevations in some of the floors. Did we not talk last time about a 6-inch difference or something from one side to the other?
Sorry?
Did we not talk about a small difference in floor elevation from one corner of the elevator to the other, or one side of the building to the other?
No, there are different levels between the 2 buildings, but no, Dominic's worked really hard at finding an elevator company that can, and I placed it as carefully as I can so that it can access both buildings. The challenge with the different floor heights means that the elevator has to be able to access, it goes up 1 level to one building, then half a level to the next building, another half a level to the next. So the elevator had to be someplace that it accesses both buildings because the floor level heights.
Right, so it's still doing the half a floor difference, or I'm not clear on
Sorry,
that.
you lost me.
Is it still stopping at half a floor level?
It does stop at each of the buildings, yes. So roughly it might be half a flight.
So
half floors.
All right, so I'm trying to visualize this. So if a door is open, if somebody's in the elevator, it stops at a floor, door opens, they get out, that's fine. The elevator then goes up half a floor and opens, the door
Yeah, if
opens?
you look, it's hard as heck, Ray. It took me a long time to work through this because it's
Yeah, I don't,
it's
yeah,
old historic and there's a lot of different construction heights and different materials and everything else. But if you look at the floor plan, Lisa, if you could be kind enough, if possible, go from level 1 to level 2, and we can see where it exits. Front to back doors, if that's, I think that might answer your question. Stop right there. It's front to back doors. So depending on where it lands, there'll be one door in the front, one door in the back, and we can coordinate the different floor heights that way. There you go.
so it's one door on the elevator you're talking about?
No, the elevator has 2 doors, one in the front, one in the back.
Okay, two, that's what I was getting at. So
Sorry, I missed that.
so when you stop at the first floor, one door opens, you go to the half a story higher, the other door opens.
The
So
back
there's
door
no-
opens. Mhm.
Okay, okay. All right.
And that's that was the challenge, is it's a older building with lots of different variations. But yeah, the 2 doors, front and back, and it can accommodate the turning radiuses so we can get the people with physical challenges up and down.
Okay. Other board members' comments, questions? Okay, Lisa, what's next? Review, board reviews the,
Yeah, I mean, I think that, well, a lot of information still is lacking. Well, we have the language, the legal language from the original easement, which is for driveway access for the first building. We don't have that drawn yet on the plans, the extent of what that is, and I question the ability to use it for the commercial level purposes that that's required. I mean, the drive aisle is only one way, so to drive a moving truck there to park it for unloading, it's going to be an issue, and there is not full access across that drive parking lot, which is required. So that easement access, I think, needs to be looked at. I think the board's going to have to take time to look at the language of the easement that we have and determine what would be, what would be sufficient. The drainage, it seems like there aren't any real calculations yet of how much drainage or how much could be contained or how much is coming off the building. So I don't think we are in a position to evaluate what that element of the project. The 45 units per acre, that's been a very consistent number that has been applied to all the new apartment. And these are new apartments. The building exists, but the apartments are new. They've never been in this location before. This is not a continued use of a historic building. It's a new use. And that is the density at this point is about 99 units per acre, which is very
it's less than that. I did the math.
very dense for
it's slightly less than that, just FYI.
All right, I had the calculations last time. That's my recollection, but I can look back at the precise ones and let the board know. We also do have a minimum square footage, which is 400 square feet for a bedroom as per the code. But there's an assumption that there'll be a great variety of apartments, I think, in buildings, and that some buildings may accommodate one apartment that's only 400 square feet, and some may have a small 1 bedroom and a small, and some larger rooms. I don't think by any means that it should be interpreted that the 400 square feet minimum is our density calculation in the code. So to me, the dumpster issue, I mean, we still have this access issue. I have concerns about the capacity and the ability to access and remove the refuse for that number of apartments in that location. Yeah, and I am concerned too that with the retail use on the first floor, that a lot of that in that building is actually becoming residential use, because the real estate office use that is for the purpose of renting the above apartments is also really is part of the apartment complex. It's not a separate commercial use.
No, but it's actually Dominic, it's his real estate office, And the hope is, if I understand him, and he can come in and
Sorry, I'm just trying.
answer that one better than I, that the real estate office is his real estate office for his business, and it's going to be expanded to include the rental for the upstairs. So it's a double use thing. The 2 rooms are existing to remain, and that's the real estate office. It was bigger, and I've taken some of that out for the bathroom, the utility room, and the storage. But that's a real estate office to remain, but just being expanded to now include the management of the building itself. Oh, and laundry. I forgot laundry. Sorry.
And where is the mail room? Like
the mail room, you'll see a mail area by the stair.
Oh, this.
Sorry, I got trifocals, so this is hard.
No, it's hard looking on the screen right now.
No, and it's also my trifocals. My reading glasses are getting, my eyes are, as we age, it's getting a little harder, but it's right by the stair there. And I've done the analysis to make sure that they're ADA and that they're a certain height that people rolling in can access and hop on in. Before I forget, I just wanted to answer your question about the easement. So the easement was given in 1974, and the buildings are becoming one. So both buildings will have access to the back of the building, because the easement is for the one and it's going to be integrated. So, and some of the deliveries, same thing as it's a business office, sorry, it's a business upstairs. So the same challenges when people have to move furniture in and move out, same thing. They use the back stair because it's newer and goes straight up. And we could use the front like it's currently used, but for 12 people, it's not a huge amount, quite honestly. So we have 2 access points. Oh, and I extended what you see there. I extended the stair from the building on the right so that they can access directly to the back and be safer. So my changes, other than the 400 square feet apartments, is extending that upstairs stairway so it exits into an area in the back, so in safety. And yeah, sorry, I think if you could see, I think the mailroom, yeah, it's.
So you want me mailroom? Sorry, I'm moving it
No,
around.
I'm just saying, I think I put the freestanding horizontal multi-unit mailbox.
So mail unit.
And we're reducing so we're going from 40 odd people to 24 people or less. So the number of people in this building, if you have business occupancy, you have multiple people in each office, or 1 person per office, without all the bathrooms and the kitchens and all the rest. So the occupancy going from business to residential is lessening the volume of people coming in and out of this building by about half. What additional concerns or questions that you may have had? Oh, sorry.
Sorry, I can think that.
Yeah, Lisa, you still have more to go through. I mean, or
Yeah,
more,
I think the next step is for the application and my comments will be shared with the board, and for you to take a look and consolidate your issues and comments, things I may have not noticed or missed, so that we can give a full reply to the applicant that's complete and not piecemeal. I know that that's a frustration from previous pre-submissions and the rest of not knowing every detail about the code and the requirements, the things the planning board looks at. So I think at this point we have a good sense of what the applicant is asking for, and what the code allows, what the comprehensive plan suggests, and what makes a good functional project, and putting that response together so that we know what the next steps are, I think is the proper.
Okay.
If I may, I love living in the village. I love working in the village. This building's been empty. Business occupancy, as you may know, is since COVID. The market's dropped out completely. People are choosing not to go back to work, and it's a problem. I know the Gap building's empty. There's a challenge with this one and some of the others. So as we change and our needs change, we think this will be a great place for those of us who have kids who are going to be looking for their own homes, or perhaps university students. I don't know what the village board is looking for, but we need that. The shipyard's about 3,200 to 3,600 per, and the others are going to be also very high. And for 12 units of entry level for kids, I say kids because I'm older, young adults, newly married, or just out of university, just out of high school, that need that entry level and to be part of the downtown with utilizing the facilities, i.e. the grocery, at the little grocery place, the restaurants. I think this is a great fun place for young people that we can put our kids at, and that they're near us, but not necessarily in our homes post-COVID. I think it'd be a great place for the village as a whole, because it'll actually add that component of that age group as well, as opposed to traditional single-family houses around. So we're looking forward to working on this in the village, and we look forward to changing this to have it continue be a great asset to the community.
Okay, so we'll the board will look for Lisa to formalize her comments. We'll add ours, and then we'll have something back. What's the timetable on that, you think, Lisa?
I think I will try to get my comments to you within 2 weeks. And then we'll see your timetable on being able to. But in the meantime, certainly I will share the plans tomorrow. If you haven't already received them, I will give you the fresh set, because sometimes they things also get buried even if they were sent. And you can start taking a look for yourself at the information that's been submitted.
Okay.
And yeah, I realize everyone's busy. I did submit it about a month or so ago, a little short of a month. So if you guys have any additional questions and comments, please reach out. I'm here to help and answer any of them.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
I
Well,
just
thank
jump
you.
in with one quick clarification. Hi, Allison here. Heather, I don't have my camera on. I'm running around with my small humans who are very excited about a snow day tomorrow. It's going to be a hoot.
Oh shoot! Are they going to stay home?
The school just called. That's part of why I hopped off the call. My kid came home. He turned his PJs inside out. He flushed ice down the toilet. He's like, "I'm going to make it snow day," and he did it. So I'm just popping in.
Okay.
Yes, luckily he only did like 3 ice cubes. I got a little terrified when I saw where he was running. I just wanted to real quick, because I know we hear this from a lot of different applicants, and I can't remember if it was a comment from you or from another one. The village planning board does have the 10-day rule. That is, if any document is submitted after 10 days before the hearing. There's one of them now. Hi, give me a second, babe. Anything that's submitted 10 days after the 10-day mark will absolutely not have time to be reviewed. That, however, doesn't mean that if it's submitted prior to that 10 days, that there's a guarantee of making it onto the calendar. I think the way it was worded in the board rules was a little confusing, because what we also sometimes see is I still only have 1 full-time and 1 half-time. And so if I get 20 or 30 submissions in the 2 weeks prior to a meeting, which sometimes is not outside the realm of reason, it is literally impossible to get to everyone. So it's still handled in order. I just wanted to clear up that little thing. I know I've mentioned it to a couple other applicants along the way, and I think planning board, we might want to brush up that language to make it very, very clear. So just before something comes in before the 10 days does not promise a spot on the next one, because we are managing, I think right now we have somewhere around 20 applications that we're currently juggling. And I think we have another 12 in the queue we haven't even gotten to yet. So I just wanted to make that little tiny clarification. And the 4-year-old is now running down the hallway.
without all the
And on that
clothes.
note,
Sorry, you have to take a picture. They're adorable when they're young and they're having a blast. It's
this
cute
one
stuff.
is certainly indeed. Okay, thanks, team.
So no, I hear what you're saying. That's why I submitted December 9th, because I wanted to give you guys enough time to review it. So I respect your time, and that's why I try to do it as much in advance so you guys have the time, so it's not you're not inundated. So I hear what you're saying, and absolutely we'll continue to give it as much in advance as possible so you have sufficient time to review it.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Anything else? I don't think so. All right. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you all, and have a great night. And
Good
Allison,
job.
go. Yeah, sorry. I don't know
Everyone
if you
stay
guys
off
have
the roads
grandkids.
tomorrow morning. It's going to be rough.
Sorry?
Everyone stay off the roads in the morning. It's supposed to be rough.
Oh, but no, I want to know if they're going to do the snow. I want to do the sledding at the middle school and high school. I can't wait for the snow, because that was always a blast with the little kids and the big kids. And we haven't had that recently. So I'm hoping, even though hopefully, it won't be bad, but I hope that the kids are out there having fun again, because it's the best thing to watch when they're little, and just the smiles. So happy New Year, everyone, and look forward to moving this forward.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. All right. Good night, everyone. Unless there's further things.
He stole my words.
I did. Am I allowed to add one thing that I forgot to mention during my report? Is that
Oh, sure.
So I forgot that the zoning board, we haven't had a meeting since the zoning board met. And so at the zoning board meeting, when they looked at the variance for allowing, from 65 to 75%, they essentially the verdict was, it was tied 2-2 because one member had to recuse themselves. But the verdict was made that they passed it sort of on the understanding that it was allowing the planning board the discretion to make that decision. But it was, I felt the need to report that it was a very long and difficult conversation, as you're all familiar with long and difficult conversations. But that was the sort of the spirit of was the planning board is, they wanted to give you the discretion.
Okay. Yeah. And that, you're talking about the clearing
Yes.
percentage of site. Okay.
For Mather.
Oh.
For Mather.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yes,
Yeah, and I should just clarify, I don't recall exactly the decision, but it was not tied. It must have been 3-1 because we couldn't leave with a tie.
No, correct. It had been tied for over an hour.
Yeah.
And then one member said, with the argument that the planning board would then have the discretion to make the decision, as opposed to, this being the decision that was made. And that's how
so it's a non-binding decision, is that?
No, it's binding. It's just the that was how the decision was made.
Okay.
Where it's
It's
binding.
because, oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
No,
No,
go
it's
ahead.
just that the request before the board, the zoning board, was whether or not the goalposts should be moved from 1% to another percent. Because it wasn't, the zoning board didn't have the authority to set the actual clearing limit, because that's what the code empowers the planning board to do. So the ultimate decision was to, yes, allow the goalpost to be moved, because the discretion for whether or not that's an appropriate clearing limit relies under the code with the planning board.
Well said, Allison. Allison is my planning translator. Thank you.
Okay,
No
so
problem. I got you, babe.
So back to us. I got it. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
Right.
Thank you.
Anybody else have anything?
Yes, I just want to verify that Mather's going to give the decibel readings to the planning staff, right, Jen?
I'll ask for them, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jen. I appreciate that.
No, and I think that we'll need a lot of, we'll need the specifications for the equipment that they're proposing to use, so that we can understand that a 12-foot wall really will, I mean, and maybe with some input from someone who knows a lot about sound transmission, but yeah.
I
I
appreciate
think,
that. Thank you.
yeah, it's something to keep I'll certainly keep my eye on the wall.
Okay. Thank you, because, even though the young lady said that it was only 1 decibel, I think it's an
1 decibel's a lot.
exponential. Yeah, it's
Mhm.
not like,
Yes.
well, you know what I'm trying to say, that 1 decibel doesn't, it's a jump in sound and not
And-
just a little bit.
And in the limited reading I've been doing about sound transmission and comfort levels for decibels, I think, as I pointed out in the staff report, WHO and most other sources that I ran across, I think the village's threshold might be a bit high for getting sleep or being able to study in residential areas. 50 decibels is pretty high. And maybe that needs to be looked at.
Mhm. I agree.
You also might ask former zoning board member Mike Ferruto, since he's been involved in installing noise walls.
The big walls, yeah.
Yeah. So
And yeah, I think it's the really high, the low frequency, high wavelength sounds that require the very tall walls, like trucks. That's why along highways, the walls have to be so high, because the wavelengths are quite tall.
Yeah. Okay. All right, anybody else? All right, good night, everybody. I'm sure
Good
we'll be
night.
getting memos, and we'll see you all in some form on February 3rd.
And everyone stay safe.
Thank you.
I appreciate y'all.
Stay safe,
Thanks.
safely.
Take care, everyone.
Right.
Good night.
Night.
Good night.